Laws and mercy. Welcome to Appalachia's Homestead. I didn't get to film putting on Miss Lovey her new collar, her leather collar, because the girlfriend got so excited over her new collar. She started licking it and bucking around and doing all that, which caused Miss Belle to start doing it. I never knew that they would get that excited over that. So Mr. James, who has been mowing the orchard that we're about to set, we have that coming up. We have a lot of new things in for that, and it's going to be really fun. But long story short, I wasn't going to get kicked in the head, although I may act like I'm already kicked in the head some days. But anyway, welcome to Appalachia's Homestead. So it's evening time. We've already had supper, and we're doing some things, and rain's moving in, and it's black. It's a kind of milder blackberry-ish, winterish this past couple of days. It's cool though. But long story short, I wasn't going to film tonight, and I wasn't really sure I was ever going to make a video about this. But I think with all of the events that are happening right now, if I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling, some of y'all have to be feeling it too. And my problem is talking it out, meaning talking it out to who? Because you never know nowadays what kind of response you're going to get when you express yourself or you have something to say about something, you know, freedom of speech. But I think this is an important subject for everybody to listen to, regardless of where you are on certain aspects of all the things that are happening right now in our country and in the world. So if you follow, aren't those beautiful? So if you follow the channel, you know that I'm very big into ancestry, and I always try to sprinkle in things from the past, things from Appalachia, things from my family, things historically into my videos here and there, because it's what I love and that's what I want to document. And you know, really, I think understanding ancestry, understanding where you're from, and understanding history, the subject that apparently a lot of people have failed. I think that's where we learn where our path and what our path should be. And it also sheds light to just how important you are, how I am. Because the fact of the matter is, folks, the fact that you're here is a very delicate and fragile subject. And what I mean by that is you're very, very, very lucky. What? So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of how this is coming about and what I mean. And I hope I don't lose you, because it's really important in the end. It's been a couple of weeks. My sister sent me a picture on my phone. I was in the kitchen. Morning, no big deal. Wasn't even fully dressed, you know, pajamas and chores. And I got a picture that came through, and so I was like, what is this? So we chit-chatted back and forth, and it was of a grandmother of mine. And I've done some research on this particular line. This is coming through my literal maternal father's line. Very important line to me. I did initially work on it quite a bit, but then I kind of backed off because I started hitting a couple of walls. And I always tell you that when you're doing ancestry, at least in my experience, if you start to hit a wall, you know, have a couple of lines that you want to work with. I started with surnames, which is what I did, and I hit a couple of brick walls. I got a lot of information though, got a good start, but then I sort of stopped. And it was because I started running into other things with one or two other lines I've been working with. So it's not like I wasn't familiar with this situation. But the situation is this. None of this information is on Ancestry, so it's not, I haven't even loaded it there myself. No one has loaded this information to Ancestry, which is the main forum that I've worked with a long time. But I got this picture, and something struck me so funny. And I'm telling you right now, God is speaking to you in ways and with things that maybe you have dismissed in the past. I hope that in the last year or two, you've sort of come more full circle and grounded yourself and go, you know what? I think he's trying to get my attention. I better act on this. Which is exactly what I did. Something told me to go to the computer, you know. sit down, grab a cookie, and I'm going to look this up. I'm going to be a little nosy today because I haven't looked at this in a while. And I entered some information. I've gotten better at doing Ancestry. I've gotten better working with Fold3 and Heritage.com and lots of different Google searches. So I've actually improved my whatever little bit of skill I have. And I found my Papaw's father submitted to the Eastern Cherokee rolls. I didn't believe it when I saw it at first, and it really took my breath, and I had to stare at it for a second. And I knew what I was seeing because I knew his name. I knew who his mother was. I knew the brother's, at least one brother's name. Now, granted, this person has been gone before I was born, but this person was present in my mom's life, my uncle's life, my papaw's life, everybody. And his mother applied them for the Eastern Cherokee rolls, and through his father. Unfortunately, that father was already passed, and that's all stated out in all this information. And the good thing about looking at rolls, if you look at rolls, especially if you're looking at, say, the Guion Miller roll, different things like that, a lot of times it's a lot of information. So I'm giving you a tip here as well. If you have someone that in your family that has applied, then most likely they filled out a lot of historical information about your family. And sure enough, they did. To further this conversation, which is where I'm headed with this, not only did this mother put her children, which is my great-grandfather, on the roll to apply for all the rolls, but his father's father, now remember I just said his father was passed, and he died very young, but his father's father also applied. That would be another grandfather of mine. Well, here I am about ready to roll off the couch again because I've been searching for this man's grave, which I did find it a few weeks ago. I have not said anything on videos about this. I went to the church, which is almost into Polk County, Tennessee, if you're familiar with that area. That's where Benton is and Cherokee National Forest. Nancy Ward is buried there. I'm trying to give you some big name things that are there. Almost into Georgia, but not really. Almost into North Carolina, but not quite, you know. So, long story short, so I started studying. I took these applications and I've applied them into my research, and it's opened up this huge treasure trove of information. So this grandfather I'm talking about, the grandfather of the young grandfather of mine, he served in the Civil War. He applied for the Eastern Cherokee rolls, and he gave all this information, but earlier in life, he was actually born in Monroe County. If you know where the Cherokee is, Tellico Plains, south of, kind of down from Sweetwater, whatnot, then you know where I'm talking about. But he was born there, and in his application, he gave all the information. He gave fathers' names, mothers' names, grandmothers, sisters, everything. And he goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the government multiple times in terms of he submitted his application, they took it, and then they would ask questions, and then he would answer those questions, which was all by mail, 120 years ago, people. So, all of this process took about a year. And do you know that after he submitted his last letter, he died? So it stopped. But he was in the Civil War, and at the time of the Civil War, he was 18 years old in 1863. November of 1863, when he turned 18 years old, he mustered in Knoxville, Tennessee, my hometown. And along with him went his 74-year-old father. Stay with me. His 74-year-old father. They both went in at the same time. They both served in the same unit, if you will. They both went to Nashville. And if you continue to look through dozens of paperwork in terms of here's a pension later on and all the paperwork, I'm talking, I've probably got 100 things to read that led me to this video. And the young man in January into February gets sick. Doesn't say why. He's in the hospital in Nashville. His father also, same time frame, 74 years old. Smallpox. So it doesn't state that the 18-year-old son has smallpox. It just says he's very ill and in the hospital. But the father, who was 74 years old, who enlisted with his youngest child and his only son, he dies of smallpox. So last Friday, I went to Nashville, and I am desperately trying to find the grave of this grandfather. Because not only is he a grandfather, not only is he important just because of that alone, but because he is a direct line of a Cherokee lineage that my family did not have documentation of. I now have all the documentation. I will be the one to upload it to Ancestry. No one in my family has ever seen this documentation. But it took me a couple of days to think about this, and I kept talking about it with James, and I kept going over this in my mind because my grandfather is not here to research this with me, to celebrate this with me, to be in awe of this with me, and to know that we go back so far now in knowing where this is coming from in this line, the grandmother it's coming through, her name, her roll number, all the things that, she did, or that the role that she supposedly was enrolled on. I'm still digging. I haven't gotten to that yet. I'm letting God lead me on all of this journey. But long story short, this is what it dawned on me one day. Can you imagine? You're 73, 74 years old. I'm nowhere near that. But I have mothers and a grandmother and aunts and uncles and Miss Lou and whatnot. And, I know once you get to a certain point in your age, you've done your job. But instead of watching your youngest child, your only son, go off to war, whether you agree with it or not, which, by the way, this gentleman, the older gentleman, was an abolitionist. I do have 1890 paperwork on this gentleman explaining everything about him. He was also an abolitionist. But he didn't say, "Goodbye, son." He said, "I'm going with you." To me, that's his way of protecting his child, protecting his boy, protecting his lineage. I mean, this was a man that fought the War of 1812, okay? Fought in the War of 1812, lived his life. And I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know if circumstances that I like to romanticize in my mind are true. But I have to think that some way, somehow, him going with his son may be helping him make a better decision once the circumstances really got going. And I believe that presence of that father to son is what saved him. Even though he got very, very sick. And why didn't he die? How did he make it? Maybe he was just young and was lucky? Or maybe the presence of a father being there, like a parent should be, somehow helped him make one better decision. Whatever that coulda, shoulda, woulda been. I don't know. He made it. He made it. And because he made it, he had children. That first son of his had my great-grandfather, had my papa, had my mama. So don't tell me that I'm not here for a reason. And don't tell me you're not here for a reason. We're here for a reason. And everything that we think we're going through today doesn't measure yet to whatever they have ever gone through in the past. We need to build off that strength. We need to build off of that history. We need to build off of history in general and know it very well, because it repeats itself in cycles and in circles. Where are you going to be? Where are we going to be right now, tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now? In the cycle. Up or down? Where do we choose to be together? Because you see, as I've said before, we all bleed red. We all have to eat. And we're going to have to figure this out together. The people, together. So Friday I went to the National Cemetery in Nashville. He's on the Roll of Honor, which is provided through and by the National Cemetery. But his body is not there. At least they tell me it's not on record being there. It could be in an unknown grave. Clearly it was moved. But I'm desperately searching. I would be at the library tonight after all my chores. But you know, this whole pipeline thing got us a little, bothered, so we're conserving our gas. And so I'll get there. I'll get there. But I keep thinking to myself over and over, how fragile of a situation that is. Think about it. One person that you've never met, one mama, one papa you've never met. Maybe you don't even have a picture of this person. Fortunately, I have an incredible description. Black hair, dark complexion, black eyes, 5'8", 160 pounds. I have all of these things, in my back stock, but I wondered over and over how these people lived and how these people died. And do you know that after he submitted his final paperwork to the U.S. government, again, to explain who he was and who his father was and who his grandmother was and what her name is and where they're from and all of the things that they are and blood quantum and all of these things, everything, specifics. I looked on another source and I found a sheet that I somehow missed in his pension. And something to do with the U.S. Army and the final, closing of that. And do you know that he died of disabilities due to having previously the measles? And I have to wonder if that's what he had in 1864 in a Union hospital in the middle of the Civil War in Nashville, Tennessee. You're dealing with that. And the father that came with you to protect you, who served this country, regardless of anything that had ever happened historically. He served his country. He served this country. He served our country. He died. I know this is my family. I know this is my story. I know some of you could be bored by that, but I hope that you can take a story similar to this story or a story similar to this or like this in your family and put it into perspective right now and understand that things are not necessarily easy for most of us right now. Most of us are working really, really hard and we're trying to get back to normal, whatever that is. But do not forget who you are, where you come from, and the sacrifices that people that never even knew you were coming yet, the sacrifices they made for you and for the future generations they hoped would come. Just like I hope you're making those choices today. I'm making those choices today. Because our grandbabies twinkle in our eyes God's children are literally depending on you. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It may be a little confusing. It's easy for me to talk about. It's kind of like, you know, you go to the doctor's office and they're trying to, you say, yeah, I've got this ailment and I feel like this right here. And they start talking all this, you know, and you're like, wait a minute, explain that to me. I always tell, talk to me like I'm 5. I give you permission because I want to understand. But I know you get it. We've got more videos coming up. I hope you like seeing all these fun videos with Gabriel. Y'all, thank you so much for being so kind to my boy. He is loving it, and we're doing a lot of great things together, and I hope it's encouraging you to do the same. Stay strong. Stay the course. We the people. I'll see you on the next video.